So can everybody hear me? Is this working? Okay. So, welcome everyone. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Orange County Business Journal, all the people that put this on. I know it's a tremendous amount of work to put on an event like this. And congratulations to all of the nominees which are going to be awarded today. So, SA Recycling. Gordon kind of gave the introduction there. SA Recycling is 143 companies, I think, around there right now. And I think we're in 17 states now, Gordon. And about 3,500 employees. We should hit $4 billion in sales this year. And kind of depends on where the market goes. And I have worked there forever, so I'm 67. And when I started with my father, I was 20, and my father used to say to me, "Sonny boy, if we can get to $20,000 a month, we'll be making a lot of money." And that was his goal. And so it was a long time ago. And as I said last year, when I was surprised of getting the nomination, you know, I remember driving a tow truck. It just wasn't that long ago. And so, you know, how did we build SA, right? How did SA go from being the smallest scrap company in probably North America to the largest? And so when I was working on this speech, and you know, when I was trying to, it's easy for me to get up and talk about scrap, and talk about metal and talk about my business. But this one was much more difficult because when I was working on this, I wanted to obviously talk more about, you know, how we did the business. And so I thought I would try to pull out some key lessons, and I brought, everybody in my company gets a book when they get hired on, and so I brought copies for everybody. In the past, I've just set some in the back, but then, and I tell people if they run out, email me, but that tends to be much more work, so I just brought enough copies for everybody. I want to start out with a quote by Anatole France, which was a philosopher, poet back in the late 1800s. So, to accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe. And I think it's important when you're an entrepreneur and you're building your business. You know, you've got to act, but you've got to dream that your business can go someplace. You've got to imagine where it can go. And when you come out your plan, you've got to believe in your plan. No one's going to follow you, right? If you don't believe in your plan, you've got to be the champion of that plan. Albert Einstein said that, you know, logic will get you from A to Z, but imagination will get you everywhere. And I truly believe that the only thing that limits us in life is our imagination. And if you can't imagine you can get there, you're not going to get there. And so everybody has dreams. Everybody has ideas and thoughts. You have to imagine that you're going to get there. When I was a kid and I was driving truck, you know, down to the port, and I thought the docks were bigger than life. And, you know, they were loading bulk ships, and they had shredders, and they had huge cranes. I mean, we had a little tiny toy for a crane. These were massive cranes. And, you know, we had one little truck, and there's huge trucks, you know, going in and out of there. And I used to imagine, right, that someday I would own that dock, or own a dock, maybe not that one, but own a dock. And it took me 30 years, but I did finally buy that dock. And most people smarter probably could have done it in 10 years, but it took me 30. But we did finally get it. 2007, we bought that dock, and actually we bought the only other dock in town, so now we own both docks. But it was always my dream. But again, you have to imagine you can go there in order to get there. So when I'm trying to teach my managers, and as I said, we got 140-something yards out there, and when I'm trying to teach my managers, I have what I call my triangle. And so my triangle is play to win, never quit, never give up, live life like a bridge. And, you know, play to win to me means you're going to change the paradigm. You're going to go through the wall, under the wall, over the wall. You're going to do whatever it takes to win. It doesn't mean you're going to break a moral value or break the law, but you're going to change a paradigm. There used to be 3 steel mills in Southern California, U.S. Steel, Bethlehem Steel, and Kaiser Steel. And through regulations or mismanagement, I don't know what, they all went out of business. And our yard really had no place to sell scrap unless we were going to export. But the export yards, which we now own, but back then we didn't, the export yards thought, well, if they didn't buy our scrap, they could put us out of business. And we had committed the crime of putting in our own car shredder. And even though it was a little tiny old shredder, but we'd put our own car shredder in, and so they didn't like that, and so they didn't want to buy our scrap. And so all of a sudden we were froze out, and so we had to change the paradigm. And so we invented what we called a rotator, and because people were loading containers on ships, but we could hook our rotator onto the bottom of a container crane, and we could take open-top containers, and we could put scrap in them. We could drive them underneath there, and with a container crane, we could load a bulk ship, even though we didn't have a dock, right? Because all the other bulk docks had the scrap sitting right next to the dock, and they would pick it up with cranes, and they would load in a ship. Well, we couldn't get a dock like that because there weren't any available, so we figured out how to load off dock and load a ship. And that's what I mean by changing the paradigm. Play to win. Never quit, never give up. People say that all the time. Never give up. It's probably used way too much. But for me, what it means is you always get back up. And when I was growing up, my father pounded in my head. He was in World War II and in the Korean War. And he pounded in my head since I was a little kid that you never quit. You never give up. And what he would always say is it doesn't matter how many times they knock you down, you get back up. And he used to tell me, Sonny boy, as long as you always get back up, you can't be beat. Doesn't matter how many times, you just get back up. So that's what I mean when I say never quit, never give up. And the final one, live life like a bridge, which probably I get the most comments when people read my book and they'll email me about it or comment on it. Live life like a bridge. Just imagine you're sitting on a hill and you're looking down at this little tiny railroad bridge. And it spans this deep roaring river. And over the top of the hill, here comes a train. And here comes 1 engine and 2 engines and 10 engines come roaring over this hill. And there's 100 railroad cars behind them. And they're roaring down on this bridge. And you're standing up and you're looking and you're thinking, my God, they're all going to die. And you stop and this train roars across the bridge. And all 10 engines and 100 railroad cars roar across this bridge. And you stop and you realize that little tiny bridge can handle that huge train because it only takes 1 car at a time. And if you can train yourself in life, and if you can train yourself when you're building your business to only take 1 problem at a time and solve it and push it over the bridge never breaks. And I think the reason that people have nervous breakdowns, the reason that people start drinking or do stupid stuff in business is because they take the entire train on the bridge at the same time. If you take all your problems on the bridge at the same time, it will break. And, maybe people are really good at multitasking and they can handle 10 things at once. I'm not. I don't care if it's 1,000 cars long, right? You line them over the bridge and you push them. Maybe it's 5 seconds, maybe it's 10 seconds. But you figure out the solution to the problem and you push it over the bridge. And that's what I mean by live life like a bridge. So many people get stressed out, and it just kind of goes with living life like a bridge. And I just believe you've got to treat business like a game, or it becomes too personal, and you have to step it away, or it becomes hard to think. And Shakespeare said in Hamlet, no thing is good or bad. It's how you think of it that makes it so. And what he meant there, right? Just imagine you're in your car and you're stopped at a stoplight and you get rear-ended. And your car is completely totaled, and you jump out of your car and you say, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life, my car's totaled. Or you can say, you jump out of your car and you can say, this is the greatest day of my life, I didn't get hurt, right? So it's the same exact thing that happened, but it's how you think of it is so. And it's the same thing in business. It doesn't matter what your competition does. You can be really pissed off, or you can say, man, that was a really smart idea. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to figure out how to do it better, right? It's how you think of it that makes it so. Don't stress out, right? That's really the key. So I believe that you make your own luck. And what do they say? You know, work plus effort creates luck. And so many times throughout my life, you know, people have said, God damn, you are lucky, okay? You got really lucky on what you did. And it's true, okay? God has been incredibly kind to us, and I do feel like I am incredibly lucky. But you need to make your own luck. We put our first car shredder in 1980. It was a little junk shredder we bought out of the scrap because we didn't have any money. In 2003, we finally had made enough money. We borrowed $10 million, which was our largest loan we'd ever had. We borrowed $10 million, and we decided we were going to put in a mega shredder, the first mega shredder in California, which meant it's 6,000 horsepower, and it was capable of doing, you know, our shredder was lucky to do 50 ton an hour, and this shredder would do 300 tons an hour, right? So, I mean, it was tremendous difference, let alone it would shred much heavier scrap. So we borrowed the money, we put the shredder, and we shred the first car November of 2000, Thanksgiving Day of 2004. And we had put this budget together where it was going to take us 3 years, and we were going to get to 30,000 tons. We were doing 12,000 tons. And in 3 years, we get to 30,000 tons, and this was the budget we put together. In December, so we started in November. In December, we shredded 20,000 tons. In January, we broke 30,000 tons, and in March, we broke 50,000 tons. We were making more money. The market jumped. We were making more money per month than we'd made like in the prior 20 years. And people said, you are the luckiest guy in the whole world. And I agree, okay? We were incredibly lucky because that market, we hit it right. But we took the risk, right? We made our own luck because we put ourselves out there. We risked $10 million. You know, you could have had a massive recession, right? You could have really been getting your ass kicked because you couldn't pay that $10 million back. So you got to put yourself out there, and that's what I mean by you got to create your own luck. Sometimes you got to take the risk in order for you to get lucky. So I feel like so many people as entrepreneurs, they live so they can work rather than working so they can live. And I think it's really key that you realize if you're an entrepreneur that you are working so you can live, so you can take care of your family, so you can enjoy. When I was 26 years old, I'd always worked 7 days a week. My father worked 7 days a week. We had contracts at the landfills. The landfills were up 7 days a week. We were picking scrap up. That's just what you did. You worked 7 days a week. And I was visiting my mentor down at his shop. His name was Al Borchert. He was 72 years old. He built a company called Pacific Trucking. And he'd sold it recently because he could barely walk around anymore. He got arthritis really bad. And he was telling me how he'd made a mistake. He'd worked his whole life 7 days a week. And that, you know, he hadn't really, now he was struggling to enjoy it because he couldn't really walk. And he could have been flying down in a private jet to Mexico, but he was going down hunting, and him and his wife, he was working on his truck, and they left that night to drive to Mexico. And they got killed in a car accident that night, rear-ending a trailer. And he should have been flying down in a private jet. But the point being is that he had worked his entire life, 7 days a week, and had never enjoyed it. And for me, it was an epiphany that I was not going to do that. I was not going to not enjoy life. And so I changed, and I worked really hard to take Sundays off and to not work 7 days a week. Doesn't mean I don't sneak in the restroom and look at an email when my wife's not looking, but, you know, I try not to work on Sundays. So I believe that you always take the high road. And, you know, I tell all my people, when in doubt, just do the right thing, right? Take the high road. And I just think that's how you should run a company. No one's ever going to say I'm a cutthroat businessman, because I'm definitely not. I just work harder than everybody else. But we take the high road. And I think it's really easy. I tell my people all the time, just err on the side of the employee. Err on the side of the customer. do what's right. And I just think that's how you run your business. So I don't have to tell you guys out there, you guys didn't get to where you are without knowing this. Your most valuable asset is your people. Okay, that hands down, forget anything else. It's not location, it's not your equipment, it's your people. Your people are your most valuable asset. And you got to believe in them. You've got to talk to them. You've got to listen to them. But they are hands down your most valuable asset. And which is why the cover of my book, the title of my book is Create the Connection. And it's about creating the connection between your people. It's about getting them to know you and to believe in you. Every single new person that we hire at our company gets a copy of that book. And they get a letter from me and signed by me and signed by my sons that welcomes them to the company. And it says, look, if you got a problem, you call us. And it's got every one of our office numbers, every one of our numbers, and it's got every one of our cell phone numbers on it, right? And people say to me all the time, how are you giving out your cell phone to 3,500 employees? And they think I'm crazy. But what happens is that, and I'm not saying you don't get a crank call, okay? But it's like 0.1%, okay? 99.9% of the times you get a call, it's a problem, right? And it seems so trivial, right? A guy's not getting paid his overtime. He's not getting paid his insurance. He's not getting paid his vacation. And to you, and people say, George, how do you screw around with something that's $100 or $500? But it's a lot of money to that guy, right? And it's about the culture of your company. And when that guy feels that he can call the owner of the company and he can solve his problem, he believes in your company and he tells other people. But also what happens is that if he calls me, right? If he calls me or she calls me, what am I going to do? I'm going to call someone in my company, whatever that department is, right? And if I call them and I say, what the F? Why aren't you guys fixing this problem? Why is this happening, right? The last thing they want to do is get a call from me that a problem they didn't fix. And so what happens is it changes a paradigm in the company where they don't want to get those phone calls. And so they make damn sure if an employee is calling them that they're fixing them. And what it also does is that when there is a problem, 9 times out of 10, I'll get an email or a call ahead of time saying, hey, look, we have this problem. This employee might call you, right? Because they don't want me to call them. They want me to know about it ahead of time, right? But it's that culture of the company of taking care of your employees. And everybody knows in our company, everybody knows that they all have my phone number. And when we buy a new company, the first thing I do, we don't even own it yet, right? We've signed the papers. The first thing I do is I go in the lunchroom, I meet with the guys, and I write my phone number on the board. You'll go back years later in the lunchroom and my phone number is still on the board. But I write my cell number on the board for every single one, and I tell them all, look, guys, if you got a problem, you call me. That's the culture of the company that I think you should have. We have a Christmas party. Oh, stop it. Richard's the best. We have a Christmas party, right? You know, some people have like a Christmas party for the executives and for the employees. Well, we have one Christmas party. Okay, we don't have one. We have a lot of Christmas parties because we're in 17 states. But we have one for each region. And when we have a Christmas party, it is for everybody that goes there. I like to smoke cigars. Okay, we have our Christmas party every year at the Grove. I will have 150 people out there smoking cigars. It looks like the goddamn place is on fire, okay? There's so much smoke going up, right? And I light every single cigar, every single one. I punch them and I light every single one. And the guys will line up and I could get someone to help me, but it's not the point. They want me to light their cigar. And I'll light every single cigar. A lot of people never smoked a cigar in their life. And I got to teach them how. Don't inhale because you're going to choke, okay? And women, okay, the women want to come up and smoke cigars. It's the craziest thing, but they love it, right? And they all look forward to it. And every time I go to a Christmas party, they always say, are we smoking cigars, right? But it's that point, it's that thing of creating that connection with your employees. And if there's anything else you can ever do in your company is create that connection with their employees. So, again, with that connection, right, I believe you run your company from the bottom up, right? You don't run it top down. Maybe there's people out there that are God, that are so brilliant, they can run things from the top down. That is not me. I run things from the bottom up. I believe that the guy driving the forklift or the guy driving the tractor or the guy driving the truck knows a hell of a lot more about his job than me. And so my job is to support him, right? My job is to help him do his job better. But that's the way we run it. We run the company bottom up. And I just think that is fundamental to any company. And the bigger you get, the harder it is to do. Because you get this corporate BS that is just overwhelms you sometimes. And I fight against the machine. Sometimes my people, and there's a lot of them here in the back, they're just shaking their heads, okay? I'll tell people, look, you need to fight against the machine. And they're like, George, you are not helping us. I said, look, we are not going to have this corporate BS, okay? You've got to fight against the machine. Bottom up, not top down. You know, most companies, corporate is God. And everybody works for corporate. And that's not where the money's made, right? At least in our company, the money's made in the yards, right? The money's made in the scrap yards. We flip that, okay? Corporate works for our employees. Corporate works for the yards. And the people, the yards, are their customers. And what it does is it just puts everybody on the same team. And you go in and you talk to my companies, and especially when we buy new companies that have never had it this way. And they'll all say the same thing, that our corporate people are the nicest people they'll ever meet. Because they're all on the same plane. Because that's the way we run the company. You know, one of my main jobs is to put a sense of urgency, and I just feel like any CEO of a company has to put that sense of urgency. You've got to get out there and get your people to want to get stuff done now. It's like, do it now, finish it now, win it now. I walk through my yards and I see something that's wrong or I see something I don't like, and I'll tell the people, okay, guys, we got to fix this. When are you going to get it done, right? You don't just say it, right? You got to get a date. And they give you a date. We're going to have it done in a week, in 3 days, whatever. And I said, okay, I want a picture in 3 days, right? Because you got to put that sense of urgency on there throughout your whole company. If you're building a plant, if you're going to start, if you're going to close, you got to pick a date. You've got to get that sense of urgency. If you don't have a sense of urgency, nothing happens. It just doesn't get done. Almost done here, guys. Hunters and farmers. I was interviewing a woman here 20 years ago, and for a job as a salesperson, and she says to me, she says, look, I'm a farmer, I'm not a hunter. And I'm looking at her like, I don't even know what the hell that means. And she says, look, you give me your best customers. You give me your best customers, I will take them to lunch, I will take them to baseball games, I will wine them and dine them, and they will absolutely love me. I will farm those customers, and they will never leave you. But I'm not a hunter. I am not going to go out and get new business. I'm not a hunter. And I love that analogy. I just hadn't ever thought of it that way. And for me, my goal is to hire hunters for my scrapyards, right? My managers of my scrapyards, they got to know how to hunt. Okay, we're competing against small mom and pop businesses where the husband's on the forklift and the wife is on the scale and maybe the kids are out there working in the yard. These are tough competitors on these little scrapyards where we compete on the street. And you need a guy or a man or a woman, because we have a lot of women managers, you need someone that knows how to hunt, right? And that's really the key. And if the business isn't growing, if nothing's happening, after 6 months or a year, we're going to flip the manager. And every single time, if we have a company that's underperforming, we put a new manager and we can change it around. So the way you get someone to hunt, right, the way you get that kind of a person is with an incentive plan, right? That kind of a person wants to win, right? That's what I want. I want people that want to win. I want people that want to hunt. The only way you can get someone to hunt, right, is you show them how they can make more money. And when you show a guy who's a hunter how he or she can make more money, they'll work till midnight, right, of getting stuff done. You know, if there's a line at their scale at 7 o'clock in the morning, the next day they're going to open up at 6. And if there's still a line at 6, the next day they're going to open at 5. The key is to have an incentive program that is really simple. All these companies that you see, these big companies, they have rocky, return of invested capital or some bullshit that I have no idea what it means. You need like 3 accountants to figure out how the hell you get a bonus, right? And look, I'm not smart enough to figure it out, and there's no way your regular employees are smart enough to figure out how you get a bonus. We keep our bonuses really simple. Every one of our scrapyards, every one of them has their own income statement. Every manager has access to that income statement. They see it every day. By the 15th of the month, they can project where their income statement is going to be at the end of the month. A small scrapyard guy makes 5.5% of the net profit. That means for every 100 grand he makes, right? That means he makes $5,500. And I'm going to pay that bonus on the 3rd pay period of the month, right? So not a year and 3 months later, the next month. If he makes 200 grand, he makes $11,000, right? People can understand that. By the same token, if he or she screws up, right, and they screw up and they blow an engine or they get somebody hurt and it costs them $10,000, I want them reaching in their wallet and I want them pulling out $550 and burning it on the ground, right? Because they can do the math in their head that quick. And look at some of our yards are 2%, 3%, 8%. I mean, the point is, it's a simple percentage that you can figure it out. The biggest key, if you are going to run 140 scrap yards spread out all over Hell's Half Acre, okay, and you're going to watch your expenses, the key is to get every single expense to affect a wallet. If you can make every expense in your company affect someone's wallet, whoever owns that wallet will watch that expense, right? And that is the key. We work really hard to make every single expense hit someone's wallet. And the owner of that wallet will watch that expense. And the managers of those yards, they're watching those expenses. They're making sure they're not getting overcharged. They're making sure that it's fair on what's happening. They're not letting overpriced scrap come in their yard because they care because it's affecting their wallet, right? And that's the key. And I just think it's critical you make these people profit partners. That's how you get people to hunt, right? You get people to hunt when they get a percentage of the profit. So finally, look at, so many times people have great ideas. And when the pioneers started across this country to go settle the West, right? They didn't know what they were going to hit. They didn't know what mountains or rivers or whatever, right? You figure it out. You start. And I just feel like people that want to start a business or want to become an entrepreneur, they just need to launch, right? You need to start. So in closing, guys, as I said earlier, look, I am the luckiest guy in the whole world. I truly feel that way. And I know I said you make your own luck, but I do believe in karma. I believe in doing the right thing and taking the high road. And I have the most amazing employees. A lot of them are here. People that just put their heart and soul into our company every day. I was lucky to be blessed with an incredible family. I worked alongside my dad for 45 years. And my siblings still work with me. They're still my great partners. Now my sons are working the company way smarter than me and are gradually taking it over. And finally, my wife is been on all my adventures with me, and she's here. So thank you guys all. Thanks for listening. Good luck to all of the nominees, and I appreciate it.